How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. I have a special guest today, and his name is Kenneth Bedwell. Kenny is the founder of STR Insights, which is an app that helps you aggregate and evaluate short-term rentals prior to buying them. And Kenny came to our Inner Circle meeting and presented his app yesterday for our group, and it was amazing and totally blew me away with the level of granularity and data that you could extract from it prior to kind of purchasing your short-term rental. And it was just an incredible presentation. And so I reached out this morning and I was like, hey man, we need to do a podcast because I want you on there. That app was next level. And I want to talk about short-term rentals. I want to talk about the market and everything else. And so he graciously agreed. And welcome, Kenny. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to share and maybe help someone who's listening.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Kenny. And as we talked about kind of offline, the premise of this podcast is essentially to help you become a better leader, become a better human being, man, woman, whatever, for your household, but also to build a legacy and an empire, whatever that looks like to you. And so the reason I wanted to have you on is because a lot of people, we specifically use real estate as an investment vehicle to provide us cash flow. And short-term rentals are hot. A lot of people are interested in them. And but a lot of people don't really understand the nuances behind them. Then I get to talking to you a little bit more, and you leave a big bank Fortune 50 company having executed this model using short-term rentals to kind of exit the rat race. And so like you couldn't be a more ideal guest for this audience because they're trying to use these vehicles to give themselves freedom, flexibility, and also generate legacy wealth for themselves and their family. So I'm super excited. Tell us a little bit more about your story and kind of when you got into short-term rentals and like what that looked like.
Yeah, real quick, I just kind of had like this like realization. I had a flashback while you were talking about that. About 5 years ago, I remember, or we'll say three. I think it was like pre-COVID. I don't even remember. It gets really fuzzy now. It's like before we start using like dating, like before the pandemic, after the pandemic, during like before the pandemic, whether that was 2018 or 2019. I remember walking outside a little bit frustrated from my job. And I was like, I just can't wait to just be able to walk away and have my investments or my businesses like be able to that's what I do. Like, that's my thing. I don't have a 9 to 5. I focused on that. And while you were talking, it's like, I did it. I just realized like, it hasn't clicked yet that I did it. And so that was an awesome moment. But to tell you my story and how that got started, because it's not easy, to just walk away and take on that risk. My wife's like, well, what about health insurance? What about all these other things that we're used to, or the 401k and all this stuff? And I was kind of preparing in my mind, reading books. But the biggest thing for me, I joined a real estate mastermind group, and we had our first meetup in person. And I was literally like, I was the only person, there was 15 people in the room. I was the only person with a 9 to 5 job. And, I had 3 days. I'd taken 3 days off for this. I was super excited, and it just blew my mind being around with these people and like how they think, like they were true entrepreneurs. Some of them were, purely invested in real estate, and that was what they did in short-term rentals specifically. Other ones had other types of businesses, but short-term rentals on the side. We were there to focus on, understanding the short-term rental market. And this was back in 2021, or 2020, I think, right as the pandemic, like a couple months after. And so not many people together, but we were together. And the day after it ended, everybody was like, hey, we found this really cool property that we might go all partner in on, and we want to check it out. And I just remember like the sinking feeling, like I have to go back to work. I have to go back to my job. And right then and there, I told myself, I said, I've got 5 years. I'm gonna walk away in 5 years. I got to figure it out within 5 years. This is 2020. So and I worked really, really hard to figure out a path. How much money did I have to make in order for me to walk away, to be comfortable? And, how many property short-term rentals did it require? I'm not retired. I still have businesses. I'm still hustling. I definitely work a lot harder than I did before, but I don't have those restrictions now. But I had to identify what it was for me and how much my family needed in our current circumstances to be able to walk away and start that, that journey, that true entrepreneur journey. And be, and I chose short-term rentals. And so the magic number was like 5 or 6 properties, and they had to be making a certain amount. That's really what it needed to be. And so the beginning of last year, 2022, I finally had enough capital to get that last. I got a bigger property. It's a 7-bedroom property. And after doing the math, I was like, holy cow, I can walk away. And so, that's essentially what happened. I mean, there were some other things too that we can talk about in a second. When I started STR Insights, that, was like, I have to walk away now, not in a couple months, but now. But I had that opportunity because of my real estate, because of those investments I made, to walk away from that 9 to 5. So.
Well, that's exactly the model, right? You built up the investments to give you the cash flow to create a buffer so that you could chase this passion, which is STR Insights and your website app that you have developed. And so where do you see that going in the next 5-10 years? What's the plan for it?
So for me, I see it as an investment. So I've taken money. So STR Insights has 0 funding right now, but we have traction. We're probably going to hit $1 million plus this year in revenue. Mm-hmm. And the reason why, one, we're so plugged into the market, because I'm in the market, I associate with all these people. And I guess, like, I want to preface this too and just say, like, my story, I feel like the reason why I'm able to do the things that I'm doing is because I surround myself by the right people. Yep. So if you're listening to this and you're like, cool, I want to do what Kenny's done. It could be with short-term rentals. It could be with, long-term rentals or commercial or storage units, whatever it is in real estate. You need to associate with people who are already doing it, because you'll automatically be drawn, and you'll just follow and go in their footsteps and just start doing it. My goal was in 5 years. 2 years, I did it. 2 years. And so but it's because I followed those people, and I was surrounded myself by those people. And I felt like, I always say, like, when I do join these groups or go to these sessions, I want to be the dumbest person in the room. If I'm the dumbest person in the room, we've heard that before. Like, if I'm the dumbest person in the room, that I'm just going to be like, yes, please tell me, and like learn and grow and just really get that like confidence, because really that's what it's all about. So anyway, so that's kind of like the underarching theme. What was the original question, though? I know I like kind of went off, but
just the fact that you use the short-term rentals to exit your day job, which is it's not what everybody's trying to do.
5 to 10 years. That's what you asked.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 5 to 10 years. Right. STR Insights. Sorry.
Yeah, STR Insights. So for me, I see STR Insights as a personal investment. Sure, I like working. It's fun. I've got a great team. But 5 to 10 years, I'm hoping to sell it. And it's going to be a massive return. There's opportunity cost. And I see it like some of my peers who have worked, they're getting more and more properties. They're scaling up a lot quicker than I am, because I'm sinking more time into STR Insights. And I'm like, ooh, I could be like getting in on this real estate deal or doing this and that. But I've chosen STR Insights. But I see STR Insights as this massive investment and payoff in the long run. And that's what I've invested in. And that's just how my mind's been, focused on. It's like, look, 5 to 10 years, I'm going to sell this sucker, and it's going to be multi millions. And, I'm going to walk away and be able to do whatever I want to do. So.
No, you're spot on. I've got a one-on-one coaching client that is kind of in the same boat as you. He's got a very high level skill set to build an AI app, and he's very passionate about it. But he wanted me to guide him down the real estate road, and I'm like, it's a fucking waste of time, dude. Like the ROI on your time right now needs to be spent on that endeavor, because it will exponentially outpace anything you can do in the real estate space over the next 36, 48 months. And so you're stay focused, man. You're doing the right thing. You did it in the right order.
Hard. Yeah, it is hard. I mean, when you have, so everybody listening, like I have access to data and information that really tell us where you should invest in short-term rentals. When you have that kind of knowledge and that, like, I call it power, the power, you're like, well, shoot, I should just be investing. And people are like, well, why don't you just go invest in these properties? And it's like, I don't have the time to do it. Because there's a lot of time involved with investing in short-term rentals besides just managing them, but setting it up, going through that whole process, and like you're going to have to do some touch-ups to the property, all these things. I mean, our last 6-bedroom we just bought, it took us a month and a half to get it up and going, furnishings and everything. We didn't do anything major to the property. It was just so many bedrooms, so many things that had to be done, and it just took a lot of time. And so I can't do that again. I've got to focus on this, like you said, and really like help that grow. Because then the ROI on it, if I nail this, is just incredibly higher than anything in real estate right now.
So talk me through this then, because you're pretty new to investing still. I love what you said, because I teach and preach all the time that like you literally can change everything about your life in 36 months. And you're a testament to that, as someone that was in a corporate job and has now exited, built up a cash reserve system with passive income, and also has moved on to your next venture, essentially in 30 months, maybe. Like even less than 3 years. And so, I mean, what you've done is incredible. Tell us, let's talk basic fundamentals of short-term rentals. So I love what you said about the mastermind. I agree with that 100%. Coaches, mentors, masterminds, like they're a must if you want to move yourself further and faster and eliminate a bunch of your learning curve, if you will. So tell me, what was the first property you bought?
So I actually house hacked. So I bought a duplex and I lived in one side, and I was at a meetup. And so I live in Buffalo, New York, in Western New York. And, when I showed up to the meetup, it's like all a bunch of like old white dudes, like sitting around, like, with their, I've got like all these like quadplex, like all the different multi-units they have, and they've been building up for years. And I wanted to get into real estate. This was like right before I bought this duplex. And this guy, I knew I was going to get it, and I was super excited. I was just planning on long-term renting out the other side. And this guy at the meeting was like telling people, he's like, man, this is in the end of 2017. He's like, man, this Airbnb thing is going to blow up. He's like, I'm doing it right now. My property, and it was the same town I was about to like move to, in terms of like in Buffalo, a suburb. And he's like, I'm just making, he told me, I was like, man, that is like 3 times what long-term rent is. And I've stayed in Airbnbs. I was using Airbnbs at that time, and I was like, this could be a good idea. We live there. It's easy, set all up. And so that's what we did. And we were getting those numbers. And we saw those in the first, I did it for 3 years at that property. And eventually like did the whole duplex, and then, got another one and so on. But I mean, it was like the numbers from that were just insane. And so I really kind of, I wouldn't say like lucked into it, but I'm just grateful. Like I was at the right place and heard this guy talking about it, and then kind of questioned him about it, because nobody else was thinking like that at the time. So that's how I got started.
Did you self-manage at the beginning?
Oh yeah, 100%. Okay. Yeah, I still self-manage right now, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. So my biggest thing, especially with scaling, but once again, it goes back to like being around the right people. There are people in my group who have 20 properties who self-manage, and it's because they have the systems and processes in place. So when I remember like, I remember asking a few years ago before I buy a property like hours away from me, I would say, how do you guys like, this one guy lived in Austin. He had properties in Tennessee. I'm like,
Mhm.
how do you even do that? Like, you're not even there. What if something happens? And he's like, well, it's all about your team. He's just like, oh, it's easy. It's all about
Yep.
this. And you're like, you're over here like, I can't even, fathom how you could do that. And he's like, yeah, it's super simple. All you have to do is boom, boom, boom. And just being around that and understanding that just gives you that confidence. And you're like, you know what? I don't have to buy properties near me. And what I have found is that the properties that are further away, hours and hours in other states and stuff, require less time, require less energy and effort because it's kind of like out of mind, out of sight. So I
Yep.
catch myself going to the ones who are near me more often because they're right there. I'm like, oh, you know what? I could just do that. Whereas the other ones, I'm like, I got to rely on other people. But I have solid teams in those areas. So that's
So
how
how
I
did you
do
go
it.
about building those teams?
Oof. So the team for short-term rentals, there's really three types of people you need. So you need a really, really like kick-ass like cleaner. And
Mhm.
I would even say like two cleaners so you have a backup. Whether it's a company or whatever, somebody you trust, they're going to take because they're going to be in the property the most. And so that's the biggest thing is having that like someone you can trust, that does a good job. So when I go to a market, and this is my rule. I tell people this: if you cannot find a list of cleaners to clean short-term rental properties, not residential homes, because it's completely different.
Yep.
Short-term rental properties, and if you can't Google that and find it in 10 minutes, don't go invest in that market, especially if it's not near you at all. Because it's just going to be so hard. You've got to find that team and the resources, or you'll be screwed when there's situations that come up. And there's always something that comes up at some point in this journey. And so so going and finding and making sure you're in a market that has those resources is key. So the cleaner's number one, the next guy is maintenance guy. You've got to find somebody you can trust who's timely. So quality and time. Everything you do short-term rentals is expensive. Like if the washer goes out, I had a washer break at one of my properties. I had to get it I had a guest coming in same day. I had to get a washer installed in the same day. I don't even want to tell you what I had to pay for the delivery fee, but it was like 2x what the washer machine cost. Like it was
Yeah.
stupid, but I had to do it. And that's
Yep.
normal in the short-term rental space. And if you're going to get into it, you have to expect those things. And so the maintenance guy too, it can't be a guy that, yeah, I can come check it out in 2 weeks. I need it now and I'm willing to pay you for it now kind of thing. And so the cleaner, the maintenance, and then finally a quality person, this is key. So making sure that like they're going through, they're checking in on the property. If there's any issues, they're local and they can just walk in and take care of things and just, hey, this light bulb's out. The guest says, they can drop it off or obviously you can Instacart it, but the quality person is key. And I love neighbors to be my quality person for two reasons. One, you establish a positive relationship with them because they're always like, I don't know how I feel about Airbnb, across the street from me or next to me. And then two, they've always got eyes on the property. And
Uh-huh.
if you have a good relationship with them, they will give you the insights. And so all of my properties that are hours away, it's always the neighbors who are my quality people. And believe it or not, I pay them. I pay them great. But they love it because they're nosy as hell. So they love feeling a part of something, like
Yeah.
what's going on in the neighborhood. And so those are the people you want on your side because when they're on your side, like anything that goes wrong, they're taking care of it for you and they're on your side. So they're going to advocate for you in case someone else like tries to speak up against. So
Sure. Sure. How do you identify your quality person? Just walking in the neighborhood?
Well, so with yeah. So I mean, talking to the neighbors and just like seeing like, hey, like getting a 2 cents. So if you're in a traditional vacation market, you could probably just hire. I mean, like they're all vacation rentals, and there's probably just cookie cutter companies, maybe even cleaning companies who have some of these other things. But the biggest thing for me is educating whoever is going to be working on my property through giving them a list of things. So if it's the cleaners, here's what I need you to do specifically. Sure, I know they know how to clean. They probably have other vacation rentals, but specifically telling them like, okay, here's where these linens are. Here's where this, I expect this. They want that. They appreciate that. The quality person appreciates that too, to help them know what they need to do to be successful. If you can clearly communicate those checklists and systems, it's a lot easier to find someone who's willing to work with you, because they're like, okay, well, what do I do? And you're like, well, you just go in every now and then and check on the property. That doesn't mean anything. And both of you will be disappointed in the long run. Whereas if you're like, okay, I need you to check light bulbs, TV controllers, make sure the TVs turn on, like the heaters and stuff are turned down in the winter when no one's there, like all these things, they just do it. It's clockwork for them. And it's super easy to to find someone, like easier for someone to be willing to accept that kind of job. So
it's just like every other business, right? SOPs. Yeah. So,
exactly.
yeah, that's great information. So, do you still like short-term rentals as an asset class?
Oh yeah, I love it. I will not be buying any more personally that I will self-manage. So I believe the short-term rental market is getting a lot of people like, oh, it's saturated, and it kind of is. There's a lot more competition. So I personally believe in partnering with people who are really, really good at certain things. So I want to partner. I'm really good, for example, I'm really good at finding deals and finding like where to invest. And I have the data and the numbers to support it. Now, if I take that and pair me with someone who's really good at design, decor, and maybe running a property, like management style, boom, we're just like the double threat or triple threat or whoever, is in on the deal and their specialties. And that's the biggest thing for me, is finding the people who okay, I have found the deal. Here's my money, or here's my part of it. You take it and you do the rest. And there are people who are way better than that at me. And that's who I want to invest in. And I think that's really the best route with short-term rentals. Now, sure, some of you listening are probably first timers and you're like, well, I don't really know anybody. And that's okay. Go out and still try to find your first deal. But as you scale, you'll start to realize, it's economies of scale. You want to have the resources in place, and you also want to be surrounded by the right team. If you can find people who are specialized, that will help you scale faster. So find a Kenny who's great at finding deals. Find a contractor who's good at fixing up these short-term rentals in the market. Find, someone who does design, decor, and then find someone who's really good at managing them, and then see if you can partner with them to find deals, because you'll be able to grow a lot faster that way, and you'll have kick-ass properties. So
yeah, that's great. That's great advice. And the thing you said yesterday that kind of reinforced what I think about the saturation issue and everything going on in the STR market. You had mentioned how being like in that primary location is the most important thing as we see more and more saturation, because what I'm seeing is like 2 years ago, like everyone was going gangbusters. You could have just a regular fucking house in a suburban neighborhood and make a bunch of money on it, 2-3x what you could do in a long-term rental. And so everybody was doing it. But I think those tertiary markets that are not unique are going to wash out. So like if you're not in a primary location, like you were showing us yesterday, you're going to be susceptible to a dip in income.
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah. In fact, most markets, I shared the numbers yesterday, 72% more active short-term rentals on Airbnb and VRBO in the last year. 72% more. That's a ton. And it's a lot of people just throwing up their houses and trying to, oh, can I make money off this? And so the problem is for the new investors, like, okay, well, should I even enter the market now? And the answer is yes, but you just need to be careful on where you invest. You need to make sure that the number one priority is location. You identify where in the market is successful and you purchase based on that. You don't just buy in a market. I've seen a lot of people, like, it's really interesting. We put out top markets list based on your budget for 2023. And one of those markets is Broken Bow, Oklahoma. Well, Broken Bow is a great market to invest in. However, if you just randomly go invest in that market, you're not going to see the returns that the data is saying, because it's not the entire market that's doing well, it's certain areas in that market. And it's important to identify those areas. And like I said yesterday, if you skimp on location, you'll never be number one, meaning people will always choose the other properties before yours. And so your hope and your play is, okay, those properties are already chosen. I'm the last one, or I'm the one next in line. So people will choose you. But if there's ever a dip in demand, they might not pick you. And that's where you're going to see a dip in revenue. And so never skimp on location is kind of my mantra from like now forward, looking into the future for short-term rentals.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And like, you have to do your research on where you're buying. I mean, you're essentially buying a business, and you have to understand that. Like, even if you're not buying an existing short-term rental with P&Ls from the past few years, you're turning it into a business. And so the most important thing is the location, because you need customers, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people go into this with the wrong frame of mind, because they just want a house in Clearwater that their family can go vacation at. And like, I think strategically and fundamentally, that's the wrong way to go about investing. Like, if you want a place in fucking Clearwater, go buy 3 short-term rentals that pay for the place in Clearwater. But you have to be an assassin with your data aggregation and what you're looking for to make sure that you're maximizing your profit potential of the business that you're buying. And then you use those profits to buy whatever the hell you want for your family. I think that's where people get it twisted more than anything. They're like, oh, I'd like a place in Albuquerque. And then they just go drop a pin on Albuquerque and they buy any house and they just Airbnb it. And they're like, it's a second vacation home, whatever. And it doesn't perform like they have the expectation of it doing, because they didn't put any time and effort into it, as opposed to like they emotionally got involved with it. Do you see that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's really what's going on in the marketplace. You see all these people who, and it's the mindset of, this is a business, and a lot of people don't see it like that. They say, oh, I'll just make some money. Why do you want to buy a vacation rental? I want to make money. That's not a good enough reason, but we are seeing a lot of people who are saying, wow, I can buy a property here and rent it out for half the year when I'm not there as a second home, and it will cover all my expenses. And that's the goal of it. You're competing against that. Those people don't care about prices. So they'll lower their rates and keep it really low. And guests who are price sensitive will book their places. So you're now competing against that. And if your place isn't in the right location, not the right quality, doesn't have all the amenities, you're now competing on price, which is a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
We never want to compete on price. We want to compete on hospitality, because it's a hospitality business. We want to compete on hospitality and amenities. And so putting any old property anywhere, and you're competing against all these other people who are just wanting to do it to carry, to pay for the bills so they can go there in the summertime or winter or wherever as a second home.
So if you don't do your research, you're going to get caught up in the game of commodities and driven out of the market. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's a tough ball game to play in. Like, quite frankly, my entire portfolio, insurance increased 30% last year. I own everything down in Houston, and our insurance alone went up 30%. I mean, on a massive portfolio. Wow. I mean, 60 some properties. And so you think about stuff like that. And if you're playing a commodities game and there's more and more competition every year, and your prices go from 200 to 180 to 160 to 140, and like, if your insurance goes up, I mean, shit, we had taxes double too in some of our properties. So like, when you talk about those carrying costs of holding those properties, if you're not strategically positioned, like, it might be a nice vacation home for you and your family for a couple of years, but then you might get priced out of the marketplace and end up having to sell it or feed it, which it would be a burden to you and your family. It's kind of the opposite of what you're trying to do.
I think too, a lot of people, they're looking at like the cash today and not the cash in the long run tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
So for example, I was I was consulting a client on whether they should convert their duplex in Minnesota to an Airbnb. And he's like, well, it's not the best location, but it's next to the it's near it. And there's not a lot of comps, it's not bad. And I'm like looking at the street view, and it's like his house is nice because they updated it, but it's pretty much in the ghetto,
Mhm.
like just not the best area, I should say. Maybe like a C neighborhood kind of thing. And I'm like, why? Like we're looking at the numbers, and he's like, well, yeah, I mean the numbers this year look pretty good. I was like, but what about next year, the year after? Like there's obviously going to be a decrease here. You can't expect people to just to
Yeah.
pick your place. He's like, yeah, I guess you're right. And I was like, so what are you going to do after 3 or 4 years when it doesn't make sense anymore? Are you just going to flip it back to a long-term rental? You're going to sell it? Like what? And so we basically, by understanding that, he realized that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to I had $100,000 of capital to deploy into this property to update it to be a good Airbnb. He's like, that's better spent on actually finding a true vacation rental in the right location rather than just trying to put lipstick on a turd, or a
Yeah.
pig, or
Yeah.
probably, yeah. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
So, and
100%. I get
forcing
it.
that. So it's the long run view that we're really looking at as well. So, I mean, if you ever have that tinkling in your stomach, like, you know what, I don't know if the market continues to grow in terms of supply, how do you see that property doing in 5, 6, 7 years if you're planning on holding it that long? Is it still going to be a good short-term rental or not? And that's what, if you have that feeling like, then it probably won't be. So just think, like, don't just think today and the dollar today, but the dollar for the long run as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That brings me back like 10 years or maybe even more when we Airbnb'd a house in Austin a long time ago. And the pictures were fantastic. And it was like this oasis. There was a backyard pool and hot tub and all this other shit. And like you got there and the neighborhood was trash and the homes were so close together. I didn't think to do a street view. And like there was nothing around it. Like I guarantee that place is not, if it's an Airbnb now, it's like $40 a night. Like there's
Yeah.
because of the reasons that you stated. Oh man, that's funny. Oh, okay. So do you think if you had to redo it all over again and you had 3 years to get out of your job, would you choose STRs as an asset class again, or is there something else that you've been introduced to throughout your investment career that you're more bullish on?
I mean, I think, like, for one, I caught the wave at the right time for
Sure.
STR, so I would definitely not change that. I'd probably, if I knew, like, take the knowledge I had, and go back 3 years ago, I'd be in certain markets very heavy in STRs in certain markets and probably selling right now or last year, just to like capitalize on the equity, the appreciation of those properties. But something that's like growing in popularity in the short-term rental space is moving away from, because what we're finding is that bigger homes, so properties over 5+ bedrooms, are taking more of a hit than smaller bedrooms, because when times get tighter economically, people still travel. They don't not travel, but they travel in smaller groups. So couples and small families are typically the ones who get out more. There's more of them essentially. And so 1 and 2 bedroom properties overall do really, really well just in general, like the ROI on those, especially per unit. And so something that I'm personally looking at, and I'm looking at deals with other people, is, I know the boutique hotel thing has gotten a craze in terms of like finding deals like that. And that's really awesome because there's forced appreciation there and there's also the cash flow, but the ROI on the individual units is so high. And so that's something that like I'm getting into right now. And then also, but like packaging houses together in terms of like in order to cater to larger group sizes. So I'm not sure, like what I mean by that is we are looking at, I won't say the market, we're looking at a particular market and we're looking at buying 4 10-bedroom properties next to each other. So I've got an investment group I'm doing this with, 4 10-bedroom properties next to each other. And the reason why is because, one, there's very few 20 beds There's very few 30, and there's like no 40, but there is demand there in this particular market for that. And
Yep.
so it's not the demand for the ones and twos, but there is demand for that kind of for that traffic. And so nobody is catering to that. No one in the market, I guess people in general would prefer to stay in Airbnbs. Now that's an opinion in a sense, but demand is definitely increased for short-term rentals, because think about it. If you have a large group of, say, 60 people, they're going to have to rent out hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Hotels, there's no community feel to that, especially a mastermind. If you go travel to on a corporate event or whatever, like, it's so much better to stay in a single house that can, house everybody in the group. Like, it's so much more meaningful in the connections and networking there. You can like eat together and cook together, do all these different things. And so we're looking for me, I'm two things I kind of mentioned there. So the boutique hotels, we're looking into that, or multi-units essentially, not necessarily the boutique side, but just multi-unit places that we can put either, whether it's tiny homes or individual, like turning apartments into short-term rentals in the right market locations. And then finally, purchasing multiple properties near each other to basically like a compound or whatever, for someone could rent out all together. Because the money, it's really interesting, the revenue in short-term rentals. So it's never like linear. So like a 1-bedroom will make 50,000, a 2-bedroom will make, 75, a 3 will make 100, but then all of a sudden a 4-bedroom will make 150, and that doesn't fit, and a 5-bedroom might make 160, and you're like, well, hold on, the 4-bedroom special here. When you get to the higher bed counts, it starts to really drastically change. So like a 10-bedroom in this one market we're looking at will make 300,000. Well, a 20-bedroom will make 900,000.
Yep.
So it's like 3x whatever that was. So that's why we're thinking differently. We're looking at these trends and things and trying to get ahead of currently what people are, single family home here in this market. So
that's super unique, because it definitely speaks to me. I run a couple of different masterminds, and we just actually hosted an event in San Antonio for the Inner Circle group that you met yesterday. And like, part of me was hesitant to go down the Airbnb road. The group is small enough now that we could have done Airbnb this time with like a 10-bedroom maybe, but like, I didn't do it that way just because I didn't want to set the expectation for the next time when the group is 40 people and there's no place for them to go. So, I mean, I've been hosting events like that for 4 or 5 years. And so that what you're saying is spot on, but it's like, it's super unique. I guarantee you that if you can find those 20 bedrooms, they'll be booked 52 weeks a year, because guys like me will go on your calendar and say, when are you available? I'm looking at November, and whatever fucking week is available, I'm going to book that week. And then I'm going to blast my list and say, this is when we're going. And so like, that thing will just fall in line with occupancy. I could see, like, and you would be booked 50 weeks a year, most likely. Cause I mean, there's a ton of people out there hosting events and looking for places like that. So it's not that, man, that's a cool concept, and I guarantee it will do well.
Yeah. So and the thing too is, I've surrounded myself around people who are specialized in this. So we've got a guy who's, we call him the bank whisperer. He's got connections with bankers that are just, he can get lending of all sorts, and it's just like incredible the type of financing you can get. They're already on board with this, and I'm like, I don't even have comps to like give them to like, for their underwriting. They need that still, but they're already like, yes, whatever. If you say this is good, then we're going to, we'll figure something out. We've got another guy who's marketing, and he's like, I'm going to need a $10,000 budget, and this is what I'm going to do with it, and this is who I'm going to target. And he knows his stuff with marketing. We've got another person for design, decor, and manage. Like, everybody's got their roles here. I mean, it's like a $7 million project we're doing here on these 4 10 beds. But the idea though behind it is, at the end of the day, I mean, we're going to be cash flowing, and honestly, we'll refinance after the first year as a plan. We'll get all of our money back, and then it's just cash flowing every year. But we've got the right people, like people who know that, like the banker guy. Like, I couldn't get that type of financing. I couldn't
Sure.
find a bank who'd even, they'd be like, who are you? Like, they don't care. And he's got that. He's the man for that. I'm the guy that's like finding the properties in the right areas and stuff. And like everybody's got their role in their job. And that's how we're able to make these things happen. So that's really like, I guess, the secret sauce to kind of like looking forward is identifying who's really good in these things and partnering with them and working with them to, find these deals. So.
Okay. I like what you covered there because it really covers the gamut. So like what we're talking about now is obviously multi-million-dollar properties, but like you started this conversation by saying, hey, the onesies, twosies are sometimes the best ROI.
You don't have, and I'll just say this too, like you don't have to do a multi-million-dollar property now. Like I have a really good friend and I stayed at his place. I went down in Florida. We snowbirded for a month with my family. And because we're like Buffalo in January is terrible.
Yeah.
So we snowbirded for a whole month and we stayed in his place and we were just shocked by how nice it was in terms of the quality compared to the neighborhood. We even met some of the neighbors and we had them over and they were just like, wow, this is so much nicer than our vacation rentals that are next door. They were visiting, they were guests. But he had gone above and beyond and I was asking him all these questions and how much did it cost you to do this? And he was telling me the numbers. And I was like, dang man, like if I gave you $100,000 or $200,000, could you go and replicate this and run it? And he's like, absolutely. Like, I need the capital, I just need to know where. And so I'm like, well, I'll find you where and I'll give you the capital and you go and do it for me. And so, I mean, like even on the smaller deals too, it doesn't have to be the bigger ones. And so there's really like, what I'm telling you is something, what I'm telling people, I guess, listeners is something to aspire to. But the processes and the systems are literally the same for the smaller properties all the way to the bigger ones too. It's just the number of bedrooms and the size of the deal that's different. And that's it. So
that's unique. That really gives me some ideas though, because like I rehab a lot of houses. Like the quality of work that you can do in a 900 square foot condo for really inexpensively. But it also like the one thing people don't take into account because they think they're overspending for certain things, like the durability of the stuff you put in that's higher end is exponential. So like, will it last through another 2 years of rentals when your Home Depot version of the fixture would not last through the first 3 months? So like that's super interesting as well when your brain gets working about the economics of it all. So that's awesome, man. Guys, what I've heard Kenny say is you need to use STR Insights to really spend your time studying your market and figure out like his app is amazing. Go out to his website, check it out. It's got the ROIs for all the different size bedrooms. You can aggregate tons of data out there and compare and contrast different markets, mountain, beach, all the different areas that you might want to do an STR. And you can compare and contrast all the different sizes of properties and figure out kind of where you want to put your money before you just go investing in a marketplace. So definitely check out his website. And where else can they find you, Kenny?
You can follow me on Instagram at Kenny_Bedwell, or we have STR Insights page at STR Insights. We're on Facebook, YouTube. We've got tons of video content there. Check out our YouTube. I interview a lot of different people who are market experts. So if you're like, hey, I don't know where to invest, go check out our YouTube and listen to some of these people and the data and the metrics. That's what I try to focus on, is understanding like where you should be investing, and that's backed by data, not just opinion. So check out our YouTube channel too.
I love that, man. I love data. So I'm definitely going to check out your channel. If you could leave our guests with one thing, what would that be?
I mean, I am just a firm believer in the law of attraction. So I said it earlier, surround yourself by like-minded people. That might require you to join a group, start by reading books. If you don't have money right now, read books. That's one way to do it. Listen to podcasts, listen to these, like watch videos, like surround yourself, watch these people, get motivated, because it's all about the confidence and the motivation that help you scale and get to the next level.
I love that, man. Thank you. Thanks for hopping on, Kenny. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for
I
having me
can't
on.
wait to see your app 100x in value, and then you make a
Me too.
10-figure exit. I'm looking forward to it, man. Guys, check out Kenny and STR Insights and let us know if you need help with short-term rental investments or you just want to link up with a great group of men. Hit me up if you're interested in the inner circle. I'm Real Jeff Smith on Instagram.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.